Hello everybody, I'm Mary Rose Feldman and I want to welcome you to my studio for Free Class Week. So happy you're here. This week is all about just gentle tangling together, getting some tiles done, taking a breath, enjoying maybe some new tangles for you, or even if they're not new tangles, just settling into them, exploring them, seeing where they're going. So that's what this week is all about. I'm so happy you're here following along in whatever order works for you and whatever time frame works for you. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to start today, as we always do, with a moment of gratitude and an affirmation. Then we're going to go right into our tile. Today I'm working with simple pens, simple fine liners, whatever you like to tangle with is fine. No judgment in this week, or most of the time there's no judgment, but I'm using simple supplies this week. You can add to it as much as you want. And I'm going to work on a 5 tile. That's a Zentangle tile that is 5 inches square. And it's spelled P-H-I-V-E, 5 tile. But you don't have to use a Zentangle tile. Use whatever paper you like. Again, no judgment on that either. Use whatever supplies you like to create with. And that is perfectly fine. All right, so let's have a moment of gratitude. Get right into it. Just sit nice and tall. Take a couple good deep breaths. And the point of this moment of gratitude is to just bring our senses together. Appreciate our surroundings. Fill up our lungs with a couple good breaths. And just an easy, quiet moment. If you find your mind wandering, that's okay. Just acknowledge where it's wandering. No judgment. No problem solving, just acknowledgement. Invite your focus back to your breath and keep moving forward. Today's affirmation: I love and accept myself just as I am without judgment. Right in this moment, there's just acceptance. Have a moment of gratitude. Pause the video if you need more time and come on back for some tangling. Okay, there's our affirmation card. For those who are new here or have not taken a class from me, I have an affirmation deck, and before every class I randomly pull a card, and this is the card that I happen to pull. A lot of people like to see the artwork, so I put it under screen for those who like to see it. When I was talking in the intro, I had forgotten what my affirmation was, so I thought it was interesting when I changed my camera that it talked about no judgment. I was already talking about that. Total coincidence. Okay, so there we are with our affirmation. Let's go ahead with our tile. This is the 5 tile that I'll be working on. Again, it's 5 by 5. And we're going to start with a tangle called Hatched. And I have a step out. If you need to see the step out, we're going to do a big border, couple zigzags, and then I'll show you how to break down the auras. But if you needed a screen image of the step out, I had this one done. Let's go ahead. I'm going to start with a 05, and I'm going to come to the bottom of my tile, so it doesn't matter at this point or ever, but I'm going to the bottom of my tile, and I am going to put a very tiny aura of the edge. So really skinny aura of the edge. And a tip when you're doing this: when you do a natural line, if I don't move my wrist, so normally we keep our wrists nice and relaxed, our pen grip nice and relaxed in Zentangle. If I move the pen naturally with the joint, my wrist joint, my hand naturally does a curve. Just moving that wrist, I get a nice beautiful curve. So what happens when we do a straight line is we come down and then we get this awkward kind of movement in our hand because we're trying to make it straight, and then we stop and then we start, and sometimes we get those jiggled areas when we start. My recommendation when you do a long line is that you don't bend at the wrist and you don't bend at your fingers. You move, if you look in my picture, you move at the shoulder. See how my shoulder's moving up here? And then my hand is moving as a unit. So my wrist is not moving because that wants to do a curve. So if I want to do a long straight line, I'm moving my arm from the shoulder up and down. I can start here, move my arm in one motion as a unit, and get a pretty good straight line because I'm not fighting against that curve. So that's one of the tips I have for you when you're doing long straight lines. Not a problem if you start and stop. Again, no judgment. I'm just giving you a tip if you do want to try that method. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a really wide aura. But if I'm right-handed and if I try to do this aura, I cannot see the distance of the width of that aura. So I'm going to turn my tile around. I'm going to start here and I'm going to make that aura so that I could actually see the distance. Another tip, turn your tile around so you could see where you're going. Make it easy for your hand and your eyes. So I'm going to pick my width. I'm going to move my arm as a unit. I'm going to look at that width. And I'm going to move it down. Okay, straight or not straight. I say it all the time, imperfections of our hand is what makes Zentangle beautiful, makes our art beautiful. We are not machines and we don't want to be machines. Okay, so that's our bottom border. We're going to do the same thing at the top. So I'm going to do a skinny aura. Turn my tile around. And a wide aura. So you have two bands at the top and bottom. We are going to put hatched in these two bands. So hatched is by Alice Hendon. It's H-A-C-H-E-D. And what we're going to do is come in and put a zigzag in this border. Now, I know that my hand does not like a zigzag in one straight line. It just doesn't necessarily work for me. So I tend to do line by line. And it's not about trying to be perfect. It's just that it's uncomfortable for me and my hand. I just happen to end in the corner. If you don't, that's fine. I'm going to turn this upside down. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. So whichever way you like to get a zigzag line in, essentially all we're doing is making triangles in that border. And over here, I did not end in the corner. It's all good. Okay, so I'm doing these videos at my own pace, just for the size of the video. Please, please, please pause and go at your own pace. Okay, I am absolutely not trying to rush you. It's just a video size process. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead with the next step on hatched. you're going to look at these bottom triangles. So these ones right here. I'm looking at this edge right here, and I'm going to aura that edge, and you can aura in varying widths. I'm going to aura all the way down to the point and then fill in that corner. And I'm going to do that for every triangle on the bottom. So these are the bottom triangles. These I'm considering the top triangles. So I'm doing all the bottoms, and I'm auraing that left-hand edge. You can play around with spacing. I never make two triangles the same. I like them to be varied. Even my triangles at the bottom might be different sizes. So a couple reminders as you're tangling. Nice loose pen grip. The tighter you grab and you hold your pen, the shakier your lines get, actually. The more tension you get, and then that goes all the way up into your shoulder and neck, which is what we're trying to avoid. And I have a triangle over here that's drawn off the page, so I'm just going to fill this in. If you don't understand how I know what to fill in, there's two things I do. I find a triangle that I could see in full, and maybe I'll cover it up to get an idea of what I would see. Or the other tip that I saw somebody do is they put a scrap piece of paper on your tile, and they finish the vision, and then they tangle the full. Whoops, I didn't do that. Auraing that edge, sorry. I'm talking but they fill in the whole vision, and then they take away their scrap piece and they have what's there. So that's a couple tips on that. Okay, so pause and come back as needed. I'm going to move ahead to the top triangles. Now, we're going to do the same thing on the top triangles, but here's the key. You're going to try to figure out which line are you auraing. We're never going to aura the outside border. So the only two options is, am I auraing here or here? If I aura here, notice that the auras will continue and it'll make this look like one section. That's what you do not want. You want to aura the line that comes down and is perpendicular, or it's not exactly 90-degree perpendicular, but it goes the other direction of your first set of auras. And then you fill in that line. So see how these auras are in the opposite direction of these. And you're going to fill in all of those top triangles the same way you did in the bottom. It's just that you're auraing a different line. So changing my spacing, just enjoying the process of an aura. Letting my pen just enjoy the pen stroke, because I like these with more variation. I think it's more interesting. Really fun and interesting tangle, especially once we shade it. And then whenever you're done with this, turn your tile over and you're going to do the same thing on the other side. You're just going to tangle hatched. And always get your hand in a very comfortable position. Doesn't matter which angle your tile is. It's all about the comfort of your hand. So that's where we are right now. Come on back when you're caught up with that, we'll go on to the next step. I am going to get a little aura at the top of hatch, just a real skinny aura, just to give that border a little bit of a break from what we're going to do in the center. Close-up of that, I just did a little skinny aura there. All right, so what we're going to do next is a tangle called circ. I do this one a lot. I really love the flow of it. It starts with an orb and nice simple flux shapes and then a beautiful grid in the center. And we're going to do, I like odd numbers on this, so we're going to start with a really large one, and then we're going to work our way down to smaller ones and get them layered in the background. You could do as many as you want. Okay, so I'm going to come here and I'm going to put a nice big orb to start my circ. Now, what you're trying to do with circ is get this little twisting tornado type effect. And the way you want to do that is a very good takeoff and land. Takeoff and land just means that you take off further back from where you normally would. So if this is my orb and I want my flex shape like this, I'm not taking off here. I'm not starting my line here. I'm starting my line back here, and I'm riding that line all the way until I take off. And then when I land, I don't stop here. I keep going and ride the line. that does two things. It keeps your hand in flow. It also darkens the lines. You don't get any of these gaps that you sometimes get if you're not paying attention. So takeoff and land when you're doing line work is really, really helpful in the flow of your line art. And we don't want the flex shapes to go straight out. We want them to curve. So I start on the line, do a nice takeoff, I curve around, and then I come in and I'm landing here. Notice I took off here, but I'm landing much higher and then just flowing around. And then you can put that flick mark in the center. Now I'm going to turn my tile. I'm going to take off back here. Notice I'm not taking off here. I'm way back here. Take off with that C curve, wrap around, and notice where I landed. This one happened to land really high. They all land at a different spot based on my hand. So I'm turning again. This one was a little bit long. So I'm coming around. You want to imagine a circle. So I'm going to take off here. I'm going to go this way, but I'm going to shorten it up a little bit. I landed much closer to my circle for that one. So the rhythm of this is a regular flex shape. Turn your tile. This one's going to go behind my border. Air draw. Really helpful to keep your pen moving. And you might say, well, why is it important to keep your pen moving? It's the rhythm of it. Your hand is going to have memory in this shape that we're doing. So the more you could keep it doing relatively the same pen stroke, the more consistency and the more relaxed your hand can be. Okay. Now you might have gaps. So here, you could leave it just like that, or you could come in and you can add little flex shapes. Color in that little gap if you have it. You can add little flex shapes that drip off the top. All of these are accents, and what you do depends on how your circ comes out in that session. It's always different. Okay, so that's how to get that rotation. The next thing you want to do is this center. So we want to make this center look like a bulb popping up. And the way you do that is you're going to do a skippy plus sign. Okay, it doesn't have to be solid. All of these lines in here don't have to be solid. We're going to go to the left, and I'm going to do a shallow C curve, wide, a little narrower shallow C curve, and then another one. So notice how it's wider and they get skinnier. You're going to do that to the left and to the right. I got 3 on the left, I got 4 on the right. That's fine, doesn't matter. I'm going to turn my tile and I'm going to do the same thing in the other direction. And now it looks like you have this bulb in there. Okay, and that's circ. Very, very simple. I drew this one really big, so I think what I'm going to do is put a medium one over here and then tuck a small one somewhere. So you put in another circ wherever it makes sense for you and as big as you want it. Preferably we like to do 3 on here, just composition wise. So I'm going to try to make 3 that are different sizes. I do like if they overlap a little bit to make them look somewhat connected. So I made sure that that flux shape overlapped my first one. That was the only one I was going to be able to make touch. I love this tangle just because it fits a lot of places. It's dimensional. It's flux shapes, which I enjoy drawing. It's got movement to it. I think I'll hold off on adding any more little guys until I do the third one. So I have a really big one, a medium one, and I'm going to tuck a little guy right here. And then from here I can decide about adding in some small flux shapes. I have some little gaps here that I can put an orb in and then color in the negative space. If you have any odd gaps like that. Really tiny spaces I'll just color in. Gives the piece just a little bit more dimension when you can color in those little spaces. And I don't know if I said out loud, I put the step out on screen. This tangle is by Chris Gerstner. That's who created the step outs for us. The process of the step outs. Okay, so let's go ahead and shade. I have my regular Zentangle pencil, very short at the moment, trying to get as much use out of it as possible. I'm going to shade the circ tangle first, because then we don't have to go over it with our hand. And what I'm going to do is take the point of the pencil towards the darkest area, and we're going to go right along that inside edge of that orb, that big globe in the center. Whoops, and I forgot to put, let's get this in here before I forget. There we go. Okay, so I'm just doing small circles. I'm holding my pencil very horizontal, so I'm not getting harsh lines. I'm using the side of the graphite. Point of the pencil goes in your darkest, towards your darkest area. And then on all the flux shapes, what I tend to like to do, there's a lot of ways you can shade this. I look at that flick mark that I did in the center of the flux shape, and I put graphite on the inside curve. So that's this part. The outside curve is back here. The inside curve is here. And I just put it on the inside curve of that flick mark. And I'm literally just scribbling it. I'm going to do all the work with my tortillon. If I don't really have an inside or outside curve, I just pick a side. I don't worry about them all being the same, but if we're getting this twisting effect, most of the inside curves are going the same direction. That's just not a hard and fast rule. Like right here, that's a pretty straight line, but I'm just going to pick the same side as the rest. And then with your tortillon or a paper stump, I have both. A tortillon is a rolled piece of paper, so it's hollow in the center. I could actually squeeze this. It's a rolled piece of paper that you push the paper out and make the point. A paper stump is solid. It's molded paper, so I can't squeeze this. It's double-ended, and you can actually use an X-Acto or a razor and shave down a new point on this paper stumps. They are both valuable in my eyes. Tortillons are a little bit harder and firmer. Paper stumps are a little bit softer and gentler, so I tend to use both in my basic kit. And what I'm going to do is where I have this graphite on the inside curve, I'm going to spread it up the side and then pull it out so I get this duo effect. Half of that flex shape is shaded and the other half is bright white. And I'm just going to work my way around the tile. Soft swirls or sweeping lines, whatever works for you. Very imprecise on this. We're doing gentle tangling. We're not looking to make big details. Oops, and I forgot one. And then soft swirls on that orb. And as you bring it into the center, you're going to keep that center bright white. Remember, for shading, you need a balance. You want a balance of brights and a balance of darks. If you go too far one way or the other, you're going to lose all of your contrast and you're going to lose the effects of shading. Most of the time I do a two-step shading. I do this step, which is kind of mapping out my lights and darks. And then I will come in with a second step of shading where I emphasize the dark corners and I emphasize the bright whites highlights. For free class week, we're just doing this first layer of shading, since we're keeping it calm and relaxing and, as I say, gentle tangling. Okay, so there's our circ. Really cool. We can put a little bit of graphite. If you did do a couple orbs in there, you can put a little bit of graphite on them. Okay, so let's talk about hatched down at the bottom. And what you're looking for in hatched is where the lines go perpendicular to the other lines, where these auras go perpendicular. So that's where you're going to put your shading. So these lines, when I look, are going under these lines. So I'm going to do dark shading right there. And this is really important that you keep your bright areas on this too. Okay, so in the bottom triangles, these are going under here. That's where I shaded. In the top triangles, these auras are going under this line. So I'm going to turn my tile to get the point of my pencil going the right direction and do shading there. So I'm doing pretty good pressure here. Okay, so that's how your shading looks before we spread it out. Turn my tile and get that blended. Now when you blend this with your tortillon, you're not going all the way down. You have to leave the bottom part bright and the dark area where that overlap is. And that's the effect you get. Really cool. I just love this, the effect of this tangle. Okay, and if you go in there with a second round of shading with darker corners, you can really get depth on this tangle. Okay, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Make sure you get your chop. Signed. When you're ready, take a nice good deep breath. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tangling with me. I hope you're spending the week with me during free class week. This is all just about community and tangling together. Even though we're in a recording, we're tangling together and I'm sending you good energy. Have a great day and I'll see you in the next day. Bye.